Hello, Recover and Rise family. How are you doing? I hope you're having the most incredible day. My name is Laura Plahuta. For those of you guys who maybe are new to coming on these lives, we're going to be doing live trainings here once a week with Julie and I. And we are super excited to be here. So if you're here, say hello in the comments if you're on here live. And let us know, hit the little heart button. Let us know that you're on here with us. And if you're catching the recording or the replay of this, then hello. We are super happy that you are here catching it this week. And today's topic is going to be all about listening to the body's voice. And in this group, we are here all about helping to deepen our own personal recovery so that we can really step more into our gifts and our understanding of who we are and what we want to bring to this world. And so that we can live with more love and more peace and more joy and allow that to radiate out to the world. And so with this group, we've had a bunch of new, I'm just going to invite Julie in here. We've had a bunch of new members this week join. And so what I would love to do is to welcome them all. So I'm going to go through all of the names of all of the people. Hi, Julia. Going to go through all of the names of everybody who is brand new to this community. And if we can just all in the comments, just let them know that we are so grateful that they're here with us. So we have Tyler George, who is new to the community, Brian Mitchell, Holly Carter, Zachary Stuckey, Julianne Jane, Garrett Deering, Allison Sainsbury, Shoshana Widitor. I apologize if I mess up the pronunciation. Candice Nagrang, Sarah O'Neill, Kazimba Urban, Sylvia Stuckey, Jane Coghill, Anna Paquin, Stevie Bates, and Kristen Maybe. So we've got lots of amazing new members here. So welcome. And if you know anybody who would feel value from what we are offering here, then please feel free to bring them into this beautiful community. Everybody is more than welcome here. And so for today, we're going to be talking about listening to the body's voice. And we actually got a group chat. I don't know if you guys saw that, but when we create these events, there is a group chat you can go into. And every single week when we do these chats, there's going to be a question in there. And this week's question was, are you aware that your body has a voice? We would love to hear from you. And we had some incredible feedback from you brilliant, beautiful souls in this group. So Mike gave a thumbs up. Savina gave a thumbs up. Bruce gave a thumbs up. Joan says yes. She's a body worker, Reiki master, energy healer, and fully agreed the body and heart's wisdom and even more powerful than the mind. And Judy says yes. John says hear the whisper, avoid the scream, which I absolutely love. And then Bruce says it took me a long time to understand how quiet I needed to be to have that back and forth relationship with my body and my brain. Once I opened those lines of communication, it became easier because I knew this tone of the whispers. And this is all so powerful. So thank you so much for just being in there and for sharing all of that with us. And we're super excited to expand a little bit more on this topic today. Would you like to take it away, Julia?
Yes, I'm just trying to tag everyone in this chat. So let me see if I can do that from here. If not, I will tag everyone after. Looks like I'll do it after. Okay, great. Oh my goodness. So this is such a huge topic. And Laura, thank you so much for just being so beautiful in this space. Really, we're very excited to be able to go a little bit deeper on all of these core topics that are so important to recovery. And after my own recovery journey, it was something that I definitely was looking for more of. How do I set healthy boundaries? How do I start to, create healthier relationships? How do I start to listen to my body's voice? Because what was happening, and it's so interesting, I was just writing this down in one of the modules that we have in one of our programs. I was working a lot while I was in my recovery. I was working a corporate job, flying all around the world to build big renewable energy projects. And I was working around the clock. I was always on my phone, answering calls, doing work on the laptop. If anyone needed anything, I was definitely always there. And I didn't sleep well. I remember just waking up in the morning feeling super depressed almost every day. And eventually my body started to give out. My digestion was off. My hormonal cycle was very off. Just little things started to show up. And then it wasn't until I actually tried to play soccer one evening, I blew out my back completely. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I've got all these recovery tools that I've learned, and still I'm hitting these walls, walls, walls. And I was young. I was like 23, 24 years old, and still experiencing these really big walls in my life. So I later learned, and this is what ended up happening, the company downsized, and I was, as one of the youngest people, the first to leave. And so when I left work, I felt purposeless. I felt lost. I felt like I didn't really know myself. And that was because I didn't realize, but I had a codependent relationship with working. And some of us might identify with having codependent relationships with people, with work, with things in our life that all of a sudden consume us. And I had never been taught anything about the body's voice. I had never been taught anything about healthy relationships. I didn't even think that I was a toxic person, but here I was, someone who had absolutely zero boundaries, absolutely was allowing people, places, and things to influence me. And so, what I had to really come to terms with was that my body was speaking to me all along, right? And when I finally had that break with work, I started to learn, what's my body actually saying? Because all of a sudden I had this time to do what I needed to do for my body, to take on the health exercises, to start to take care of my body in these new ways. And so I started to tap into what Laura and I call the body's voice. And the body's voice is a whisper, like someone said in our chat. It is really a whisper, and it shows up in all of the funniest places sometimes. It shows up in our intuition telling us, maybe not to go down that path. It shows up when our intuition is saying something like, maybe we shouldn't eat that today. It shows up just with that gut feeling. And societally, we've been taught to only listen to the mind, to think about things rationally. And now in recovery, we're tapping into our higher power, who does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And there's that body's wisdom that is within us, and I believe that is our higher power voice, and it lives inside of us, and that is the body's voice. Everyone has their own beliefs, but the body does speak to us, and our higher power does speak to us through our body. So the healthier we are in our bodies, the more we're going to be able to listen to that voice. And so what was at risk for me by not listening to that voice was so much. I mean, I was following what other people wanted of me rather than actually taking the time to understand who I was and what I wanted. Because the truth was is that I didn't want to be working the way I was working. I didn't want to be, doing the things that I was doing at that time, but I didn't know how to listen to the body's voice. So I didn't know how to actually make those conscious choices. Everything on paper looked amazing. So why was I waking up super depressed every morning? Why was I waking up feeling stuck? Why was I waking up not knowing what path to take? Right? And so if you feel that way now, you're not alone. And if anyone does feel that way, please feel free to just let us know in the chat, because you're definitely not alone. It's something that a lot of people experience. I'm sure Laura has her own version too, which she'll touch on in a little bit. But really what was at risk was not being able to live fully expressed in myself. I didn't actually know who I was because I was living for everyone else while I was disconnected from my body's voice. Do you want to add anything to that, Laura?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, if you're watching this and you've been through a similar situation or anything like that, feel free to put it in the comments. I think the more that I love what's happening right now with community, because the more stories we hear about this and what's going on, the more it normalizes what we're moving through as humans, because we go through so much. And I feel like, I know for me personally, like I've shoved stuff down, and it's almost like I didn't want to admit to myself how much I was hurting and struggling, and how much I didn't actually know who I was. Like I felt like I didn't really have a true identity of who I was because, like you said, of all of the people pleasing and kind of doing what I was told like my whole life. And then all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, like who am I and what is this life that I'm living and why am I feeling so stuck? Why do I feel so unfulfilled when I have all these incredible material things that aren't bringing me the happiness that I thought that they would? And I can definitely share a little bit more about my story. It's very similar to yours, where I just worked so hard, like when I was in school and stuff like that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just followed to what mentors in my life would kind of suggest. And it's interesting because both my parents are small business owners. So my dad owned a deli. He was a butcher. My family's from Austria, so they came over and they started their deli, my Opa. And then my dad took over the family business. And so my mom, when they got together, my mom went and worked in the business as well. And so growing up, my dad was always working because he was, and my mom as well, my mom looking after three kids. So they weren't there as much, but we would go into the deli with them. We would be eating the meat. Like we would literally be in there just eating all of the food. And like our family just made it work with what was happening. But growing up, like the big thing for them was that they were like, whatever you do, don't have your own business. They're like, go get a job that is like with the government. You're going to have a good pay. You're going to have good pension. You're going to have good benefits. It will provide you the security that you need. So that was really like what was hammered into me growing up. And obviously it was out of all good intentions so that I could really be able to support myself. And so that's what I did. I ended up doing power engineering technician program at Durham College for 2 years and did Ontario power generation. I worked there for a year internship and went through that, all because a family friend suggested. He was working there. He made multiple six figures. They worked shift work, so you had time off, all of these things. And I was like, yeah, that's sweet. Awesome. I would love the time off. I love being with my friends. I love doing like stuff outside, adventurous stuff. So I was like, that's perfect. And I got in and did it. And I was like, okay, this isn't feeling very good to me. It was very mundane. It was kind of the same thing over and over again. I was like, okay, no, this isn't something that I want. So I ended up kind of looking somewhere else. And it's interesting because I think the very first time, this was when I was in my mid 20s. How old would I have been? 20, maybe around like 24. I think this was the very first time I actually made like a big decision for myself. And it was when I decided to go back to school to be a paramedic. And it's interesting because I remember that point in my life and I was so terrified to make that decision. I actually went back to school and upgraded my schooling so that I could make sure that I upgraded from like an 82 or something like that. I went back to school to make sure that I got in because I was just like so excited to be able to do this. And it was a really tough program to get into. And that was the very first time that I kind of like listened to my own body and my heart and my soul instead of listening to kind of like the mental space of like what I've been told my whole life. And it's kind of a special story for me because I have a friend, Carly, who was a huge point in my life because I remember sitting down at a restaurant and I was telling her about this, how I really want to do this. And I was so scared and I didn't believe in myself at that point that I could even make it happen. And she said to me, she's like, Laura, if you want to do this, then do it because you are going to thank yourself for the rest of your life. And she was a big reason that I actually applied. And then the following year, she actually passed away in a car accident. So it's a really like, it's a, yeah, it's was it like a very tough experience to go through, but like she changed my life so much just by having that belief and encouraging me to listen to my heart and listen to my body and actually take that path. And that was kind of what initially opened up that doorway to me to like listening to myself. And it felt so good to be able to do that. And I started like working really hard going through that. But it was like big listening to the body instead of listening to the voice, because the voice in the head, because it just like, if we're always doing what other people want for us, it's not actually truly what's in our heart and soul and what we're bringing, what we are here programmed and designed to bring into this world. And I just felt like called to share that story. And after that, it was kind of like another big journey to go on, learning to listen even deeper. Because at that point, I didn't even consciously know what I was doing about listening to the mind or the body. The mind was always just so loud. Even when I ended up leaving my paramedic career, looking back, I was listening to the mind because I was feeling so anxious and there were so many emotions underneath the surface that I was running away from myself instead of actually tuning in to those deeper layers of the anxiety and stuff that I was feeling, to acknowledge them and to actually feel them, so that I could actually start making decisions from my heart. It wasn't until I started doing work with you where I really started understanding on a greater scale, like how that actually impacted my life, when I started listening to my body or my heart instead of listening to my mind, because my mind was leading me in loops and cycles. And then I would kind of like hit this glass ceiling, and I was like, why am I not getting where I want to go? Or why am I not feeling the way that I actually want to feel? Like, it wasn't bringing me what I had anticipated it would bring me, or that I was told would bring me happiness. And it really was that journey of being able to go deeper into that listening, into that little quiet voice, creating space for myself to actually listen to that voice, and then having the courage to actually pursue that away from the norm of what I've been told my whole life, bring in a lot of extra that make it a little bit more scary to go for those things, start creating those things in life. So it's definitely a journey for listening to the voice, but oh my gosh, is it ever worth it?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and I think Laura touches on a couple important things, what is the mind's voice versus the body's voice. And the mind's voice, you know, we talk about the ego, or we talk about the the mouse brain, or the hamster wheel that just keeps going. The mind's voice really differs from the past, and really doesn't it's geared to protect us. And sometimes fear and other emotions can get in the way of us actually thinking logically. And so, logic in and of itself is not enough to kind of bring us into who we truly are.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we differentiate from mind voice and body's voice, or soul voice. Soul voice is that deep body voice, right? So the soul voice, what the soul voice sounds like and feels like, is that groundedness, that oh, you mean I can say no to that and like have peace? Oh, yeah, you mean I can actually follow my intuition and take that path? It might feel a little bit scary, especially if that soul voice is like, Julia, get on stage, or Julia, get on that live and share your heart and soul with the world. That feels a little bit scary, but it's an expansive fear, not a contracting fear. And so the mind's voice sometimes can keep us in fear and keep us making decisions that keep us small and away from our larger purpose. And so this is why this is so important, is because, if you feel like you're not on that purpose path, or you feel like you have so much more you want to give to the world, but you haven't been able to fully bring it into the world. Well, tapping into that body's voice is definitely how you get to start to make these smaller decisions that lead into this big picture. And like I mentioned, that body's voice really does talk to us all day. And it's just about us learning how to take the time to tap in. And I remember, when I was in my early recovery, I needed help to do that. I needed support to do that, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that there was this other voice that I could tap into and listen to. So somebody took the time to hold the space for me, to be able to teach me how to actually tap into that voice. And some of the things that Laura and I are going to be sharing with you later down the road helps you to tap into that voice. It's something that has totally changed the game for me. And people, the biggest reflection that I hear from people is just, you feel so much more at peace. You feel so grounded. You feel energetically different, and your body will definitely feel more at peace when you are around other people who are tapped into their soul voice. And when you become that person who also is tapped into that soul voice, other people will feel more at peace around you, and miracles really happen. um Anything else you wanted to add, Laura?
No, I think that's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm excited. I guess I'd love to know in the comments if you want to share, like, um, what your biggest takeaway has been so far from what you've heard on here. We'd love to know in the comments. And what is one thing that you can see that you would love to start implementing in order to start listening to your body a little bit more? And if you have any questions, I know like for me, it was a brand new topic that I didn't even know my body had a voice. You know, like even when I shared about making that decision to go through, I didn't even understand which voice I was listening to at that point. I would just happen to call it luck, call it guidance or whatever. That would just happen to be one of those pivotal moments where I'm looking back where I was like, whoa, no, I actually listened to my body's voice at that point and did something for me. And that was a pivotal part of my life that like really made that change. But if you have questions about it, feel free to put them in the comments. We have had some really incredible questions as well in the group that we are going to get around to asking. I know Brian asked a really amazing question, so we will be answering that. And there's been some other people who have dropped some really amazing things in the group as well. So we're going to be taking the time to go through all of those questions. We just want to thank you for your curiosity and your willingness. We're just super excited to be on the journey, walking side by side with all of you.
Yeah, and if you can hear the body's voice and the body's saying something to you right now, what's the body saying to you?
Yeah.
What do you see the body saying to you? We'd love to also hear that in the chat below. Thank you so much, Laura. You're a rock star. I love you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, for being on this live. Hopefully, if you haven't caught it here, you can catch the replay. Let us know if you're catching the replay. And we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye, Julia.